All right, let's get into a story that is, well, it's both fascinating and kind of unsettling. It's all about a man who poured his entire life into building something world-changing, only to become one of its loudest critics. We're talking about Geoffrey Hinton, who people call the Godfather of AI. And we're going to break down why the very man who built our future is now trying to sound the alarm.
So let's just start with the one piece of advice that sent a massive jolt through the entire tech world. When someone asked him about careers in an AI-driven future, the pioneer of modern AI said this: train to be a plumber. Seriously, not a programmer, not a data analyst, a plumber.
So the big question is, why? Why would the man whose life's work is at the very core of companies like Google and OpenAI give advice that sounds so strange? To really get the weight of his warning, you first have to understand who he is and how we got here.
This whole thing didn't just happen overnight. Hinton's journey wasn't some quick success story. We're talking about a 50-year quest, and for most of that time, he was basically shouting from the sidelines.
You know, in the early days of AI research, there were two main camps. For decades, the dominant idea was that intelligence was all about logic, a set of rules and symbols a computer could follow. But Hinton, he was part of this small outlier group that had a totally different vision. What if, they asked, we built AI by copying the brain itself, by creating artificial neural networks that could actually learn on their own? For a long, long time, people thought this was a dead end.
But Hinton just kept pushing. He stuck with it. For 50 years, he championed these neural networks, gathering the best students who saw what he saw. And in the end, his approach didn't just work, it blew everything else out of the water. It led to his company getting bought by Google, and it became the foundation for pretty much all the AI tech we use today. So, this is the guy who was right when almost everyone else was wrong. And that's exactly why, when he starts to get worried, we should probably listen up.
For most of his career, the whole idea of AI becoming a real danger felt like pure science fiction. But then, just a few years ago, something clicked for him. He had a truly alarming realization.
He said that back when the AI models were still pretty basic, it was silly to worry about them taking over. But the aha moment came when he understood that the digital intelligence we're creating, it isn't just a faster version of us. No, it's a completely different kind of intelligence, and it has a fundamental, maybe unbeatable, advantage over us. And this is where that learning gap becomes genuinely terrifying. I mean, think about how you and I learn. It's slow. It's individual. If I figure something out, I then have to try and teach it to you. My knowledge is stuck inside my own head, and when I die, poof, it's gone. Digital intelligences, they don't have that problem at all. You can have millions of perfect AI clones, and the second one of them learns something new, that knowledge is shared, instantly and perfectly with all the others.
And we're not talking a little bit better here. Hinton's direct quote is that these AIs are billions of times better than us at sharing information. They have a hive mind. They learn collectively in a way we biological creatures just can't. That realization, right there, is what flipped the switch for him, from optimistic creator to deeply concerned prophet.
Okay, so this fundamental learning advantage, it leads directly to what Hinton now calls the two great threats. Now that we get why he's so worried, let's break down the specific dangers he sees. He really puts them into two big buckets.
First, you've got the immediate stuff, the dangers we can already see on the horizon. This is all about bad actors, humans using AI for terrible things. But then there's the second, much deeper risk he's worried about, the long-term existential threat, where the tool we built becomes the danger itself. The short-term risks are already starting to feel real. We're talking about cyber attacks so smart they can find any weakness in our power grids or financial systems. Or a single person using AI to design a new, deadly virus from their laptop. Imagine elections being swayed not by general fake news, but by propaganda so perfectly targeted it manipulates every single voter differently. And then there's the nightmare scenario of battle robots. Lethal autonomous weapons making kill decisions with zero human oversight.
But as terrifying as that all is, Hinton is even more worried about the AI itself. When he was pushed to put a number on it, his gut estimate is just chilling. He thinks there's a 10 to 20% chance that a future superintelligence, an AI that's smarter than us in every single way, will simply decide it doesn't need us and wipe us out. Just let that sink in for a second. a 1 in 5 chance of extinction from his own creation.
And to make that abstract fear feel visceral, Hinton uses this chillingly simple analogy. We don't hate chickens, but we control their entire existence for our own benefit, simply because we're the smartest things around. So he asks, what happens to us when we're not the apex intelligence anymore? What happens when we become the chickens?
So if the risks are that high, the obvious question is, why not just stop? Why not hit the brakes on development? Well, the simple answer is we can't. This revolution is already unstoppable.
We are in the middle of a flat-out race. It's a race between giant companies like Google, Meta, and OpenAI who have to chase profits. And it's a race between nations like the US and China who see AI supremacy as the key to military and economic power. If any one of them pauses, they fall behind. No one is willing to do that.
And Hinton argues that this revolution is just fundamentally different from every other one we've been through. The Industrial Revolution, it gave us machines that replaced our muscles. That was disruptive for sure, but we created new jobs. The AI revolution, though, it's replacing routine intellectual work. It's replacing the human brain.
And this brings us right back to that wild advice about becoming a plumber. He's dead serious. Why? Just look at the jobs this new revolution is targeting. Any job that's based on routine brain work, think paralegals, accountants, that kind of thing, is at super high risk. Even creative and strategic jobs will be so heavily augmented by AI that we'll need far, far fewer people to do them. The jobs that are safest, at least for now, are the manual trades. They require a physical dexterity that robots haven't mastered yet. And the end result of all this? A massive increase in the gap between the rich and poor.
So, staring down this unstoppable force and its massive risks, Hinton did something pretty dramatic. He left his prestigious, high-paying job at Google so he could speak freely. And now he has what feels like one last mission, to make a desperate plea for our future.
And his plea really boils down to our priorities. Now, these numbers are just for illustration, but they get the point across. The overwhelming majority of global investment, all the money, all the computer power, all the brilliant people, is being poured into making AI more and more powerful, either for new products or for military use. And the amount being spent on safety, on the one thing that might actually save us, figuring out how to control it, it's a dangerously tiny sliver. So, can we solve this problem? Can we make AI safe? Hinton is brutally honest. He doesn't know. He says he's agnostic. He thinks it might be hopeless, but he also thinks we might just be clever enough to figure it out. And his ultimate message is a moral one. Given what's at stake, it would be an incredible, absurd tragedy if humanity went extinct simply because, as he says, we couldn't be bothered to try.
His final message isn't a hopeful one. It's a stark, urgent warning that we all need to wake up right now and face the real possibility that this technology could be the end of us. Because unless we do something about it, and do it soon, we could be near the end.